Welcome to Thoughts and Theories. Pain has always been the silent companion of thought. When you look at the great minds of history, you notice a strange pattern. Many of the people who changed the way we think about life, morality, and existence also lived in deep personal suffering. It almost seems like tragedy and wisdom walk side by side. Why is that? Why do so many great thinkers live such painful lives? Let's start with a simple observation. Philosophy begins when comfort ends. As long as we are satisfied, we don't question much. We go through life repeating what we are taught. But pain interrupts that. Pain forces us to stop, to ask, to think. When life hurts, we can no longer escape into routine. We start wondering what it all means. Suffering opens the door to reflection. It is the moment when human consciousness turns inward and begins to demand answers. Think of Socrates. He lived in Athens, the birthplace of democracy and philosophy. Yet his life ended in tragedy. He was sentenced to death by the same city he tried to enlighten. Socrates could have escaped, but he chose to die for his principles. His suffering wasn't just physical, it was moral. He loved truth more than life, and that love brought him pain. But it also gave birth to the entire Western tradition of moral inquiry. Without that tragedy, maybe philosophy as we know it wouldn't exist. Then there is Nietzsche. He spent his last years in madness, unable to speak, lost in his own mind. He wrote some of the most powerful and disturbing thoughts about human freedom, morality, and the death of God. But his philosophy wasn't born in peace. It was forged in loneliness, illness, and heartbreak. He lived without fame, without money, and without companionship. Yet his pain allowed him to see life stripped of illusions. He looked into the darkest corners of the human condition and still managed to affirm existence. He once wrote, "One must have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." His chaos became his philosophy. Fyodor Dostoevsky's story is no different. Before writing masterpieces like Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov, he was arrested, sent to Siberia, and faced a mock execution. He stood before a firing squad, certain he was about to die. At the last moment, the execution was canceled. That moment changed him forever. He came back to life with a new understanding of guilt, redemption, and the soul. His novels explore the darkest sides of human psychology because he lived through that darkness himself. His pain wasn't an obstacle to his philosophy, it was the foundation of it. The same pattern appears again and again. Schopenhauer lived in isolation and despair, seeing the world as an endless cycle of suffering. Kierkegaard battled anxiety, doubt, and heartbreak, writing about faith, despair, and meaning in a world that offered none. Even thinkers like Spinoza, who preached reason and peace, were exiled, rejected by their communities and forced to live on the margins. Their pain gave them distance from ordinary life. That distance made them see things that others could not. But why does suffering seem to produce insight? Maybe because pain breaks illusions. Most people live within a set of comfortable lies, beliefs that make the world bearable. We tell ourselves that things will always work out, that good people will be rewarded, that life is fair. But when tragedy hits, those illusions collapse. Pain reveals the truth that life doesn't owe us anything. That realization, while devastating, is also freeing. When you lose everything you thought gave life meaning, you begin to search for meaning itself. That search is philosophy. There's also a psychological reason. Pain deepens empathy. When you suffer, you begin to see how fragile humans really are. You start noticing the silent pain of others. You think more carefully about what it means to be human, to love, to lose, to hope. Great thinkers often feel this more sharply than others. They are sensitive minds living in an insensitive world. That sensitivity becomes both their gift and their curse. It allows them to express what others only feel vaguely, but it also makes life heavier for them History gives us many examples beyond philosophers, too. Artists, scientists, and writers often follow the same path. Vincent van Gogh painted beauty out of madness and loneliness. He lived in poverty and despair, yet through that pain he painted the raw emotion of existence. Ludwig van Beethoven went deaf, but still composed music that touches the depths of the soul. Their suffering stripped away comfort and forced them to dig into the essence of what it means to exist. Even in religion, the same pattern repeats. The Buddha began his spiritual journey after seeing suffering, old age, sickness, and death. Jesus carried the weight of the world's suffering on a cross. In different ways, both realized that enlightenment doesn't come from pleasure, but from confronting pain. Even though many of us may not share their faith, the pattern remains deeply human. Transformation begins with tragedy. Another reason great thinkers often live in pain is because they refuse to look away. Most people distract themselves from the hard truths of life through entertainment, work, or social approval. Philosophers do the opposite. They stare directly into the uncomfortable. They question everything others accept, and that kind of honesty can isolate you. It can make you alien to your society, to your friends, even to yourself. Nietzsche once said that the thinker is like a man who stands on a mountain and sees too much. That vision is a burden. There is also the social side of this story. Many thinkers were ahead of their time. Their ideas threatened the structures of power, religion, or custom. Socrates was executed. Galileo was silenced. Spinoza was excommunicated. These people paid the price of thinking differently. Their pain came not only from within but from the world's resistance to truth. It's easy to celebrate them now, but in their time, they were often hated, misunderstood, or ignored. There's a paradox here. The very pain that destroys ordinary life gives rise to extraordinary thought. Tragedy, in a strange way, sharpens the mind. It removes distractions. When everything collapses, the only thing left is thought itself. The philosopher becomes someone who rebuilds meaning from the ruins. That's why their writings still touch us centuries later. We recognize the same struggle. We may not be philosophers, but we all face suffering. And in those moments, we become thinkers too. But does this mean suffering is necessary for wisdom? Not necessarily. Pain alone doesn't make someone wise. What matters is how one responds to it. Some are crushed by it, others transform it. The difference lies in reflection. A person who reflects on pain learns from it, understands it, and finds meaning in it. A person who runs from pain only repeats it. That's what separates a philosopher from a victim. If you look at the world today, the pattern continues. Many modern thinkers, writers, and creators deal with depression, anxiety, or isolation. Our age is full of noise and distraction, yet those who dare to think deeply often feel alienated. It is not because thinking is inherently painful. It is because deep thought exposes truths that most would rather ignore. You begin to see how fragile meaning is, how easily love can turn to loss, how quickly life can change. But seeing that clearly is also what makes life richer. There's something profoundly human in this connection between pain and wisdom. Every one of us at some point goes through loss, failure, or despair. Those moments can destroy us, or they can awaken us. When you suffer, you start to see life not as a series of pleasures to chase, but as a mystery to understand. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What does this mean?" That shift is the birth of philosophy. Maybe the reason great thinkers often lived in pain is that they refused to waste their suffering. They turned it into understanding. They refused to let tragedy make them bitter. Instead, they made it meaningful. Their pain became their teacher. It stripped away illusions and revealed what truly matters. In the end, perhaps philosophy itself is a way of making peace with tragedy. To think deeply is to face life honestly, without filters. And that honesty hurts. But through that hurt, we grow. Pain doesn't make us philosophers by itself, but it opens the path. It breaks the shell of comfort and exposes the soul to reality. And once you've seen the world without illusions, you can never go back. So maybe the secret of wisdom is not avoiding pain, but transforming it. The great thinkers were not heroes because they suffered more. They were heroes because they found meaning in their suffering. They turned tragedy into truth, despair into insight, and pain into understanding. Their lives remind us that behind every great idea lies a wounded heart, and that sometimes it is through our deepest wounds that light finally enters.